payments that a borrower makes on an amortized loan partly pay off the principal and partly pay interest on the outstanding principal. As the principal is reduced, each successive payment pays more toward principal and less toward interest. A list showing payment by payment how much is going to principal and interest is called an amortization schedule. Here's an example of an amortization schedule. Our dream house is $150,000 and we make a down payment of $25,000. We take out a 30-year mortgage, which is a 6% annual interest rate mortgage, and our monthly payments are $749.44. We're supposed to construct the first two lines of the amortization schedule for this mortgage, and then we'll be able to see how much of our payment is going toward interest and how much is going to pay down the principal. Well, the first thing we need to notice is this is a $150,000 house, but if we make a down payment of $25,000, the balance on our loan, the loan we're taking out, is $125,000. Now, we make our first payment, which is $749.44. Part of that payment goes toward interest, and part of that payment is applied to the principal. To figure out how much goes toward the interest part of the payment is a variation on your simple interest formula. It's principal times rate times time, but in just a moment I'll need to make a comment about time. So to find the interest payment for our first payment, I'm going to come down here. We take our balance, which is $125,000. Then multiply it by the annual interest rate, which is 6% or 0.06. And then our time is going to be 1/12 because we're making a payment every month, and a month is 1/12 of a year. So to see how much of our first payment is going toward interest, we take our balance, $125,000. We multiply it by 0.06, the annual rate, and then we multiply by 1/12 because this payment covers 1/12 of the year. So our first payment, $625 of that is going toward interest. So our $749.44 payment, $625 of that is going toward interest. Now I want to abbreviate up here. Where I say amount of payment, I want to just call that PYMT. Where I have interest payment, I just want to call that INT. And where I have applied to principal, I want to have that as just PRINC because I'm going to use some of these words and I need to abbreviate. Now, we've made a payment of $749.44. $625 of that is going to interest. So to figure out how much goes to principal, principal is our payment minus the amount that's going to interest. That's interest right there. So if we take our payment, $749.44, and we subtract off $625 in interest, what that tells us is $124.44 of our first payment is going toward the principal. So to find our balance after our first payment clears the bank or the mortgage company, we take our old balance, $125,000, and we subtract off what's been applied to principal, $124.44, and that will tell us our balance after our first payment clears. So let's see what that's going to be. $125,000 minus the $124.44 that's going toward the principal means our balance after our first payment will be $124,875.56. So after our first payment clears the mortgage company, our balance now is $124,875.56. It's time to make our second payment. Payment number 2. Our second payment is $749.44. We need to see how much of that payment goes toward interest. And again, the interest is the principal times the rate times the time, but our principal now is the new balance, $124,875.56. That's our principal now as we're calculating interest on the second payment. We multiply that by our interest rate, 0.06, and then the time is 1/12 of a year. And that'll tell us how much of our second payment is going toward interest. So let's see what that's going to be. $124,875.56 times 0.06 times 1/12. So our second payment, $624.38 is going toward interest. $624.38 is going toward interest. Notice less money is going toward interest on our second payment, which means a little more money will be going toward paying down our principal on our second payment. To see how much of our payment's being applied to principal, we're going to take our payment, $749.44, and we're going to subtract off the interest. Again, to find out how much goes toward principal, we take our payment, $749.44, and we subtract off how much of that's going toward interest, $624.38. So $749.44 minus $624.38. Our second payment, $125.06 is going toward principal. And again, every time you make a payment, a little bit less goes toward interest and a little bit more goes toward principal. So let's see what our balance is after the second payment clears the mortgage company. Our balance is going to be our old balance, $124,875.56 minus what's applied to principal on this payment, $125.06. So let's see what that's going to be. $124,875.56 minus the $125.06 that's applied toward the principal, and our balance after our second payment is $124,750.50. Now, if you have a 30-year mortgage and you make a payment every month for 30 years, you're going to have 360 payments, so there would be a total of 360 lines in the amortization schedule. However, this is a process that can be easily programmed into a spreadsheet software application, and it can create all 360 lines of the amortization schedule very quickly.